What's going on today, YouTube? Welcome to another episode of BWI2ATXF, and this is a continuation of our Dashcam series here, Part 2. So if you hadn't checked out Part 1, make sure you like and subscribe and check that out just for context, where I talk about the initial decision points on why I went with the Blackvue DR900X. And today, Part 2, what we're going to be doing is installing on this Lexus RC F right here. As you can see by the timestamps, it's very long. There was no cutting it. So I'll be sure to break everything up in the timestamps below for ease of reference. But this is going to include some hiccups, and it's going to be fully transparent, enough so you can do it yourself. This is intermediate, so if you don't feel comfortable with electrical, or you see the video and it just is not for you, feel free to pay somebody, but it really doesn't get any more transparent than this if you're up to the task. So we're going to jump right into this. Again, this is part 2 of the Dashcam series. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. Going to get right into it. First and foremost, you do want to figure out where you're going to put this on the windshield. I have a radar detector. I know it's conventional to put it right here, but I'm not, because that's going to block the line of sight for radar and laser detection. So I'm planning on putting it over here. And since this doesn't have a screen, you need to play with the placement, get it on your phone, stream via Wi-Fi to make sure that the field of view is straight. I'm also planning to use this for traffic stops for security purposes. So you can turn this around. And I'm planning on putting this right around here. That way you can see the cabin with the lights on if it is dark. And that's just for my protection preference. I know a lot of people don't use this dash cam for traffic stops, but we're gonna make it happen. Even if it's upside down and edit, when it comes to it, if it needs to come to it, God forbid, you can turn it upside down. So that's something to consider. Before the hardwire, I'm just going to be playing with the cigarette lighter socket that they do provide. And I got a jump start battery before I even drain my battery. Just going to play around with it, and that's just going to be for the fitment to see the foresaid line of sight. Make sure that this isn't obstructed when you turn around. I'm just going to play around with the placement, to be honest. So this is eye level to where I'm at, so you can get a good perspective on how it looks to me as the driver.
Starting audio recording.
All right. So I'm gonna have it. I don't know if y'all can see that, but there are 3 LEDs. You got one red, it can go orange sometime, blue, white, and as a balance of visibility and line of sight and functionality of when I'm turning it over, I'm just gonna have it the placement so it's a little bit off the back of the mirror so I can adjust it whenever. And the blue LED is gonna be present, not the white. Something like that. You want to be considerate because you still had to have room to get through to here. Honestly, what's probably going to have to happen for a tight seamless fit, I'm gonna have to unplug these each time I want to remove it. That's okay, because I want an incognito install, consolidation, and just no wires anyway. So it really doesn't matter. The rear view mirror is going to be blocking that anyway. So I tried not to get the bubble OCD trigger, but didn't work out too good. It is what it is. What I did do though was take this out of the mount so I could really get some pressure without affecting this braking. Rather break a mount than break a electronic. It's not cheap. So I'm happy with that placement there, and got the whole rig set up. That's how it looks from the front. And I like that. Looks clean. Crack your beer, favorite beer, Bell's Too Hard to Nail. I swear by it. Highly recommend it. Next step is probably going to be one of the most tedious parts, and that's running the hardwire. You got the coaxial to go to the rear I don't anticipate that being more difficult than running the actual hardwire, because you got to splice these. So I do have some added circuit fuse taps here, both hardwire and the coaxial. It's gonna run from the top down the A pillar here. Well, actually the coaxial is gonna run up on the headliner. I may run it down here, we'll see, but hardwire is gonna go down to the A pillar, just like how it was for a radar detector, which I already have, by the way. And there's one fuse tap already installed going to accessory. So accessory means you don't have, it's not live until the ignition is on. If you want constant, which this is what's going to require, we're going to find out what the best constant is going to be. And you just pop this lower panel off, run it by the side. This also pops off rather easy. Come on. Trying to show off for the camera. Don't be afraid to break that. Pull it out, pull it back. And just tuck that. Blackvue was kind enough to give you a panel tool. I don't think you really need it, at least not for this car, but other cars you may. But for the A pillar, if you never removed this before, this right here, you just kind of stick your finger in there, work your way around, and it pops out. So you don't even have to undo the entire thing. You just need enough slack to pop that in. And also, you don't like it, these tabs are weird. I don't even know how to remove that. And again, you don't need to, but to jump ahead and move that back in, this tab, you pull that down, and while you're pulling down, you push that in the A pillar, and you'll feel it, the resistance go away. It'll kind of slide into place. That pulling relieves the tension. And as long as you ain't got that wire in the way like how I do, it pushes right back in. So you click. But we still need that off, so we're gonna pop it off again. Now the bottom panel that you need access to is held on by two Phillips, one right here, and one right here as well. Simple enough. Phillips screwdriver, undo it, preserve the screws, and you just get some leverage. You can work your way on to the bottom, to the left side, or in the middle. It really doesn't matter. And it is held in by two clips. Take that out. Now you got the option of removing the light and a whole bunch of other harnesses, or you could just tuck it out the way. You really don't even need to go the whole route of undoing it. Situate it. Remove stuff as needed, ultimately up to you. Never remove the running board or the scuff plate. Pop it up by clips right here too to unsecure. Then you can pop that one up as I just did. I literally did that with one finger. And you just work your way around. This should be another clip. There we go, clip up at the top, which I didn't break. Alternatively, what you can do is just tuck it inside of this liner. Should be protected, but this is gonna be the way I go inside of the trim. Now that trim tool I said you didn't need, you may need depending on your car and your tolerance of the headliner here, but for this car, I can just run this up, tuck it in. Doing this with one hand. And That's the headliner. Pro tip, if your car is too much gap down here or it keeps coming up, what I've done in the past is got some cotton balls, tucked it underneath there just to kind of secure it. A little bit of a finesse, but it's ultimately up to you. And even though it's not placed, it's ran so you can secure each side and kind of pull it as needed. Again, that's based off of your tolerance on the tightness up there, so route accordingly. Now for this car, you got more than enough slack here. I mean, it depends on your car, but at least for the RCF, this is gonna be easy. Since this is a side curtain airbag equipped car, you do wanna give a lot of slack for this to not be restricted in the event of an accident. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna double this over about like 3 times or so, something like that. That way it has the room it needs to operate, and you still got more than enough room to run that down the B pillar. And I'm doing this with one hand, but y'all, yeah, I'm gonna try and get the brightness in order, but yeah, it's really not that much of a task. You kind of just tuck that in, that weather strip, and then boom, you're right inside where the trim clips on. Run that down. You can see how much slack we got here. And this is intentional because my fuse box is right here. Your platform may not be, but again, this is for the RCF. What I'm gonna do is all this excess, I'm gonna probably tuck this into the running board or the scuff guard down here, just to consolidate, and probably wrap it up with some electrical tape. You can use a zip tie if you want, but pulling this all the way out the car, how are we gonna get these on the fuse? Got these from Amazon. They are added circuits, not quick taps, but added circuits, that's what they are. So I got 10 of these for about $9 ship. You're never gonna need these again. They come with 125 and 1.5 amp fuse. Common misconception, and I actually consulted with somebody about this who installs dash cams, Hardwire, but the truth is, like they said it was 10, they never had an issue. That's not providing any protection. Not only do you want to protect your car, but you want to protect your equipment as well. So the manufacturer Blackvue actually said this draws underneath under 1 amp. They said a minimum of 1 amp fuse is suggested, maximum of 2. I went with 2, so I'm going to be running these 5 amps just for the time being. As soon as the 2 amp come in, I'm going to replace that. That's for peace of mind, and that's going to be proper, directly recommended from the manufacturer. Back in my car audio days, it all started coming back to me. So to say that 10 amps was fine, yeah, but you're going to burn your shit up. You might as well just whatever. Anywho, back to the car audio days. I got my old electrical tape that I'm going to secure the crimp with. And this electrical tape is probably 2009, 2010. Like, I've been in it for a while. I don't do it as much. But if you asked me back then to get my crimpers out, I would have been like, yeah, I know exactly where all of mine are, like all 5 of them. I lost them. So you as well can use just a needle nose pliers to crimp these to secure it. I'm also going to wrap this up with some electrical tape to secure it even more. So I basically took this cap off on the accessory or the wire, folded it over a bit, took one of these, plugged it in as such, and the way these are crimped, you'll feel like a little wedge, so you know it's in there all the way. And crimped it down and give it a little pull. It's great. And we're just gonna secure that with the electrical tape. So just to go through it. With all your might. Don't move it if you're not using a needle nose plier. Change grip, get it again. And that's in there. Take this electrical tape. Secure it starting at the crimp. And follow it up to the wire. Pinch that down. That's a quick tape. I'll probably tape this up again, but you get the gist. So before y'all start talking about, oh, that's jank, using electrical tape, blah, 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 it should be using shrink wrap, blah, blah, blah. These are not moving. I don't care what you say. I've installed car audio on 2 of my cars. Electrical tape has never let me down. You do what works for you. I'm gonna do the same. But again, this is what works for me. I don't expect this to go apart. This is more for peace of mind and a little bit extra security, but the crimp is key. The proper crimp is key. The Hardwire kit is a spade connector. That's good, so you don't have to remove any grounds completely. There's a factory ground right here if you wanted to utilize, but I'm gonna opt for what I've already been using and it works well. Just get your 10 with the extension if you want, not necessary, but it's kind of wrong way. Just untorque this a bit. See how I just slipped underneath there? And I already have a pre-existing for my radar. Come on, I just had it on there. Now torque back down. That'll be grounded.
6 hours later.
I wasted so much damn time on this shit. I was able to get it in. 3 taps, so got my radar detector here. This is the ground, and I use the blank for the constant. So look at the mapping of what I use. This is for the constant or the hot wire. Even when it's off, it's gonna get power. For the switch, this was the hard part because that was kind of skewing shit. But S heater, FL, seat heater, that is a hard switch with accessory, as well as wiper, SWIG, that goes on with ignition too. So these are what you want for that accessory, for that hard switch off, and then the constant is of course just that blink that I use. I use 2 5-amp fuses. Again, one's gonna, well, 2 of them is gonna be 2 amp as soon as I get that in. But man, I tell you, I was wasting some time on this and almost felt like the day was counterproductive, but we got it in.
Parking mode off.
Got the radar on. Got the radar on. And that is real parking. I mean, that's the real normal mode. And then we're gonna switch this off. You'll see it switch over.
Parking mode on.
So now it's going off with the constant, and that's gonna be set to 12 volts. You can do 12.5. It's up to you. Everything's tucked away nicely. Wires are out of the way. Make sure it's not in the way of the brake either. And like I said earlier, I tucked the excess inside of the scuff pad. And all that's left is to snap these panels back on. And that'll be the hard wire. So to get this back on, this trim goes under the scuff plate. So you gotta kind of disconnect that or put that And so continuing on to the next day, just because I was so over the other day, not even from the product, it was more so these switches that I talked about. But gonna run the coaxial to go to the rear 2-channel for this Lexus. Gonna start off by pulling these tabs back. There's another tab for the mirror harness that you can just clip off, and see how I ran this underneath each one. One right there, one right there. That way you can just tuck it up into the liner. It's uninterrupted to the destination. I'm gonna run down here to the first channel. So this side I'm doing a little bit different. I'm gonna route this behind the side curtain airbag between this void. Make sure that you are having the right one going to the back. It should say R for rear. And we're just gonna pull this through. And get out any kinks. Route that up in the headliner. And to make sure this is unobstructed as possible, we're just gonna run this inside of the weather stripping all the way down. And run it all the way back. You could probably just tuck this in over here. I know I talked about running everything over there, but back to my car audio days, you really don't want to run a power wire with the signal wire to reduce noise. You may be able to get away with it, but better safe than sorry. Coming over, tucking this into this void. It's weather stripped, so it should be weatherproof. And there's a little hole in there. You can continue routing that into, and then we're gonna get that all the way down here. Give us a little bit of room here. Pop this up again. Come on. And pop this off as the other side. This is a little thin, so kind of work your way up there so you make sure you don't have no breaks. It's all held on by clips though. So, see how we're just tucking this under? This is another weather strip right here. That's heading out of the way. Now you're in the channel that goes right behind the trim. So that's tucked in. I'll probably give a little bit more slack here because I'm practicing on leaving the stuff in where it's easily accessible. And as you can see, that's the first place that gets taken apart. I went ahead and bought this up, ran it in the channel next to the OEM wiring, and was able to get this here. And we're just gonna keep forcing that up. Till we get up here. Using tools, because to route this in here without fully removing it, it gets a little tight here. So you need to just wedge something in, give it a little bit of clearance. And we're in there and gonna route all the way up there, run it over. This is the final routing headliner through the A-pillar, down the channel. And this is weather stripping that we followed to keep it away from the airbag. Dumps out into the rubber plastic trim channel that you can tuck that in. Has some excess down there for adjustability. Popped this scuff plate off, ran it with OEM wiring. Ran this up, popped this up a little bit, and use a trim tool to wedge the wire in here. Started falling into place. Wires here, as you can see, and pop this Pop this off. This pops off first. This pops off second. Ran it up to here. Let it fall down. Ran it into the void here. And routed it back on this corner C panel, I think, or C pillar, I think that's what they call it. And popped it back here, away from all the electrical. And we are routed. That's gonna go in the headline up here. For these routes, make sure that you avoid any clips that would interfere with it securing back as normal. I know some people may say, oh, it's gonna rattle around, but the tolerance in these panels are very low. If you do get rattled, just adjust accordingly. For the RCF, this was a little bit of a task to get back in. So with panels, you always wanna make sure all of the attachments are aligned with the hole. What is that one? This one right here, far down. Doesn't align. You kind of got to slide that down with something long. I used a trim piece tool. Make sure that aligns in. It'll start the hole, and then from there should be your only stopper. I mean, just make sure that the rest of your holes are lined up too. Don't force this because you got to make sure that they work in just fine. One of the last things, this line in the middle is the halfway point, or the dead center for the rear the rear windshield. So the lens, consider that when mounting because it is off-centered. Don't be afraid if Blackvue is upside down. It will accommodate different, I guess, views or orientations. You can change that in the app. And that's installed, clean installation. I flipped this around just because it could wrap back and kind of hold itself in the headliner. But it's up to you. This is my placement. I'm happy with the way it looks. For an even cleaner installation, I was planning on using some of the clips that Blackvue provided, but there's a channel conduit factory for the mirror harness. And that's what I use. So just twist this up, run this on the side channel, run it out the back. It's not perfect. You can probably drill out something for it to come out the side, but it's up to you. And the second part slips in. Make sure everything is in there right. Let's slide that up. Looks rather clean. I'll probably play around with it a little bit more, but you get the gist. So I modded the OEM conduit. Just kind of widen this out and I filed this off with this file right here, half file. Doesn't take much, it's soft plastic. And I'm gonna run this through the one is going to go out on that side that is bored out. Another is going to go out where the OEM wire comes out. Gotta play around with it, but you can modify it as well. So I had to keep on filing back towards the rear or to the top of the car liner just to get that a little bit room and securely snapped in now. I have a little bit of slack back here as well, and can just put this and back in the focus, and that's good. So that concludes part 2 of the Dashcam series. Hope you found it helpful. As you can see, the installation was pretty straightforward, minus using the constant and accessory fuses at the fuse box. I wasted hours of my time, so you wouldn't have to. Be sure to lock in and subscribe for part 3, where it'll be the final finale of the Dashcam series. We're going to be discussing pros and cons and real-world examples, one of which actually was very beneficial in a situation that I was in. It's already worth its weight in gold, so little cliffhanger. Be sure to lock in to part 3. This is BWI to ATXF signing off. Catch you next time.